What is up, Chuck? Welcome back to this very small channel. My name is Kai. This is called Philosophikai because it's where I share all of my thoughts and all the rambly bits of my brain with you, with the internet. So if you like old school style YouTube content where there's no fancy production, script writing, editing, any of that nonsense, no shade to people that are heavy into that and that are talented for it. I just don't have the time or the resources to dedicate to that, so you get a very bare bones video. But maybe if I get consistent, people like what I have to say, and there actually becomes an audience, that could change. But as it stands, you get me and my old OnePlus phone that I'm recording this on. Shout out to OnePlus. I feel like they, as far as Android phones go, they are one of the better brands. If you've never heard of OnePlus, it's a Chinese brand. This is not a plug. This is not like a promo. Okay. But like, I've had a myriad of different phones over my tenure of being alive in the internet era, right? My very first smartphone was a Samsung Galaxy S4. Then I had the 6. And then after that, I went and got a OnePlus 5T and then a OnePlus 8 Pro Max, 8 Pro something. And that's what I'm recording this on. I switched recently from Android to iPhone. So I have this handy dandy used 13 Pro Max. And I don't want her feelings to get hurt, but I am not a fan of her. She's got a really cute case from Berga, but I mean, which I picked out. But her camera's not as good, and honestly, if I'm being so for real, OnePlus is better. It doesn't have the bloatware that a lot of like Samsung phones have. I feel like when I was using Samsung, there were apps that you could not uninstall, like Facebook for some reason, and also it seemed to have duplicates of everything. There was like a contacts app times 2, a calendar app times 2, because you had like the Samsung version and then the Google version, and OnePlus was a very streamlined, optimized version of the Android OS that it was using. I don't remember. It was like Oxygen OS or some shit. I don't know. I'm not a tech guru person, but I do know that that's a crane. ADHD. Birds. What can I say? Anyway, I do know that the experience of said phone, OnePlus, is that they last a lot longer than Samsung devices, and they run a hell of a lot smoother. They don't have as many like laggy moments. The device I'm recording on is, God, I bought it at the very, very beginning of 2021. We're heading into the end of 2025. This phone is still going really strong. Like, I switched because she was just starting to have an overheating issue, and I didn't want to overburden baby girl, so now we're on this damn thing. That's a lot of exposition about phones, but I wanted to talk about consumerism and the economy and things anyway, so kind of bringing up phones was kind of a good segue. And I say that because this beauty, which I'm going to show one more time, this iPhone, I got her secondhand from someone in my personal life, and I paid $150. No, I'm sorry, $250 for this thing, and then bought the case separately. I did that because I am not about to spend $1,000 some odd on a phone, and I don't like having my devices tied to a contract just in case I want to switch phone providers or something. I don't want to have to go through that whole rigmarole of like, paying off a phone, switch. No, I want to buy the item outright so that I can then have freedom and control over the device and take it to whatever plan I want to use. That's just me. And so I paid $250 for my iPhone, then got the case and the little ring thingy that on the back, a little pop stand. Kind of expensive, but a hell of a lot cheaper. The cost of things, the cost of things in this modern economy is ridiculous. I can remember, and I'm sure if you're in my age bracket, like early 30s, mid 30s, whatever, you can probably recall a short time period of technology where there were these things called feature phones. A feature phone were things like, I think, was it Pan Touch? I don't know. LG Shine, that was one of the phones I had. That's a feature phone. not a smartphone, but it did have capability of, like, I believe connecting to like data or Wi-Fi. I was too poor to have that growing up. But you could get on the internet with it and do very basic HTML web navigation type shit. Couldn't play Spotify or anything, but if you wanted to go to your MySpace page and change your status or whatever, you could probably get away with doing that. So there was this weird in-between phase, and those phones, I think, were like $200, $300, $400 for these devices. They had cameras on them, but the cameras were like 1.3 megapixel type stuff. It wasn't super crazy. And smartphones are a combination of so many other different devices: a GPS, a camera, an MP3 or CD player of some sort, a radio, a Rolodex, an address book, okay, a phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, so many different devices melded into one, and so that makes the price go up. And I just the older I get and the more responsibilities and things, and especially as inflation goes up, the more that things go up, the less importance having a brand spanking new, shiny, fresh phone becomes, at least for me. And I'm not somebody who is like comfortable, but I'm also not like desolate poor. I'm just an average working class person. And I've noticed kind of a disturbing trend of people that are sort of in my socioeconomic bracket, that they spend way beyond their means. And because of modern social media apps like TikTok, Instagram, whatever, it's become the norm. And more than the norm, it's become the expectation for people to spend money to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with the Kardashians, right? And it's a sickness. It is a sickness. And I think there's something... What is it that the kids say? Chuggy? There's something chuggy, there's something uncool about having all the flashy, nice stuff, all the trendy shit that everyone else has. There's something to me that is so, like, conformist and corporate and just consumerist about all of that. And it's anti-punk and it's anti-cool. It's anti-cool. There is an artist, an animator, Tales of Mere Existence. If you haven't come across that channel, you haven't been on YouTube long enough. I've been on this stupid website for years, okay? And Tales of Mere Existence, there's an episode that he does where he talks about how, it's not very sex, drugs, rock and roll to have a smartphone or social media, to be accessible all the time. It's kind of weird to, just be self-involved everywhere you go, right? Filming everything, obsessing over the latest whatever. And can we talk about the obsessions themselves? Because I watched, what is her name? Kiki Chanel, I think that's her name. She's very sassy. I love her. Great YouTuber. And I watched a video recently where she talks about these moms that are doing back to school shopping for their daughters, their kids. And the TikTok that she showed that really got me was one where they're showing this mom showing like just an entire bookshelf, a bookcase worth of lunch kits, bento boxes, thermoses, things like that. And it was just those things. And it was just, I think, for the one child. I don't know if she had multiple children, but my impression watching that was it was just for the one kid. And she's like, yeah, she's really finding her style, her aesthetic. We don't say style anymore. That's antiquated. We say aesthetic. Everything is aesthetic. There's no such thing as style. That's why nobody has personal style anymore. We all have the same aesthetic. Okay, anyway. Tangent. I do that a lot. I'm sorry. Tangents, rants, that's the bread and butter of this channel. I don't know what to tell you. So she's like, oh yeah, she's really finding her style, her whatever. And so we got her this. And it was like 4 lunch kits. What 10-year-old, what child, what person needs 4 lunch kits? Maybe I'm poor. I don't know. But growing up, when going to school and all that, my mom when we were little, would get us lunch kits every year. Every year, I don't think, my brother ate at the school. He ate school lunch because he was weird. I got food poisoning in second grade, and that was the end of that, okay? So I brought my lunch every single day for almost the entirety that I was in public school. And I would get a new lunch kit every single year. And I think that stopped in high school, and I just started like brown paper bag with brown sack for everything. But every year, new backpack, new lunch kit, just one of each. And then we would go to places like Walmart, or once I got a little bit older and a little bit fancier, we went to Kohl's or JCPenney to get our clothing, okay? And we would get like 2 to 3, maybe some pairs of jeans, because we wore jeans every day. It's Texas, that's how people dress. I was kind of friends with like the preppy crowd. My best friend at the time was in drill team, and they had something called Pretty Day, which was every Tuesday, I believe. And so she was always dressing up and being the best friend, like I was always dressing up. So I had like 2 to 3 blouses. I had a few different pairs of flats, maybe some like kitten heels or like some boots or something. Just regular outfits. I would wear makeup to school. I would straighten my hair, because this is like 2008, 2009, whatever. Straight hair was the thing back then. It's also the only hairstyle I can actually do. My hands don't twist and turn the right way to curl. It's a whole thing. But we would get just a few things every school year, every back to school. We would get a few clothing items, and of course we would get, a plethora of like basic school supplies, notebooks, pens, pencils, markers, planners, folders, all the shit that you need, right? And, watching this video where Kiki Chanel is like, showing all these moms, showing what they're buying their children. The weirdest part of the whole thing was that none of the videos that I can recall anyway, none of them showed actual school supplies. They were calling it back to school shopping, but it was all clothing for some of it, but some of it was other shit like accessories. Like all the lunch kit, thermos, all that stuff. But then also things like jewelry, makeup, perfume, hair care products, or just random knickknacks and doodads. And I think the thing that sent Kiki over the edge and sent me over the edge, kikiing with her, was this mom purchased a set of note cards that you tear them off, I guess, and they have like a pre-written note, whatever, and you put them in your kid's lunchbox. So you don't even have to write your child a heartfelt note. You can buy these like lunch kit note pack things, rip one off, sign "Love Mom," I guess, and put them in your kid's lunchbox, and they take that to school. And she said it best. She's like, is this not the most like, hyper consumerist, overconsumption thing you've ever seen? And it is. Like, we're entering an era where instead of just getting like post-it notes and a Bic pen and writing "I love you, have a great day, love Mom," and putting it in your kid's brown sack lunch, you have to get her the fancy dancy. I don't know the brands. I'm out of the loop. I don't have kids, which I love that for me, but I'm out of the loop. I don't know what all the cool brands for all this shit is, honestly, and which feels like a blessing in today's world. I'm sheltered from all that. But, I don't have all that stuff. I don't have like the fancy this and that, and then the fancy note that you have to buy to then put in the fancy lunch kit. Like, it's excessive. It's excessive. And I think that word, that adjective, just perfectly describes everything that is wrong with this country. And you might be listening to this being like, that's quite a dramatic statement. Like, that's a hell of a thing to say. It is. And I stand by it. Like, America is a place of excess. I mean, obesity. I'm a big girl. You can make fun of me if you want. You'd be a dick if you did, but you can do it. Everybody makes fun of me. It's fine. But we have the obesity epidemic, which that's kind of an old thing that everybody in the world knows about. You have the excessive consumer spending, consumer debt. People have more credit card debt here in this country than they do anywhere else in the world. And then just everything snowballs, okay? There's more emphasis on beauty, on keeping up with the Joneses, on plastic surgery, on living beyond your means and trying to impress people. Everything from like gender reveal parties and that, all the way that we do weddings, everything that Americans do is just so excessive. And it's to a point to where if you don't conform to that excessivity, if you don't conform to that, people look at you like you're poor, like you're lesser than, like you have less worth. And that's a really toxic and really narcissistic way to live life and to view yourself and to view other people, in my not so humble opinion. I think that one of the potentially good things about this recession that we're in, but we're not in because nobody wants to actually say the word out loud, but everyone says, oh, we're getting close to it. Maybe we've already been in a recession. We're kind of almost edging towards depression. Not to scare you, but I mean, I'm just saying. I think that it could lead to some sort of financial reset. And as much as I think that that's pretty damn scary, I think it could be potentially a good thing for some people, because if you can't borrow more debt, then you can't go out here and spend money you don't have and put yourself further in the hole. And it breaks this toxic cycle. This cycle that kind of started maybe in the 70s or 80s, who's to really say, but has just kind of snowballed uncontrolled ever since then, I live in you can probably tell, I live in a mobile home, and I live in a single wide, and I'm going to say this, I'm very proud of where I live. I'm incredibly proud of where I live. I'm proud that I'm a homeowner. I'm proud that I'm not paying rent. I pay $860 for this every month, okay? The lot rent, $25 a month because it's private. It's through my employer, technically. And, property taxes are about, I think they were $1,600 last year. So, I'm proud of that. I have a paid off car. But here's the thing that I'm trying to make a point with all this, listing all this, is that I don't need to have a 2,500 square foot house and a lifted truck and a BBL and, buccal fat injections or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't need all of that to feel like I am successful in my life, like I have made it somewhere in my life. And this isn't like, I'm not saying this to try to convince myself. I genuinely am happy with where I'm at and with what I've been able to do for myself. I know that if the shit hits the fan, with this economy real bad, I know I've got a paid off car I can sleep in if it comes down to it, like, knock on wood, but you never know. And I've learned not to take anything for granted. And I think that's a big problem, is when you're spending tomorrow's money today, which is what you're doing if you're living beyond your means, nothing is ever good enough. You will never be satisfied. If you're always chasing the next thing, if you're always chasing the next vacation to Bora Bora, the next car, the next whatever, to impress people on your social media, nothing will ever be good enough for you. That's the problem. And so zooming out from a psychology perspective, it's like, well, where does excessive spending come from? Why are Americans like this? And where does this phenomenon originate from? Well, I don't know about the origination, but I do know from people that are smarter than me that there is a direct correlation between spending money, like overspending, consumer habits, and loneliness. So the more lonely, and I think I've talked about this before on this little baby channel, but the more lonely a person is, the more that they will try to buy services or products or whatever to surround themselves with, because this alleviates the feeling of being alone. And so people that, are heavily into, maybe a certain hobby or collecting, they might be trying to cope with something emotionally, such as feeling emotionally isolated or not having a strong community with others. being lonely, doesn't mean living by yourself and not being around other people regularly, which is how I live my life. But being lonely can mean not having a an emotional connection, a strong one, a strong sense of community. And community is about that emotional connection, not having that with at least a small group of people nearby you. And so when you don't have that, you will shift to do other things so that you can try to feel comforted in some type of way. And what's really interesting with social media like TikTok is you have kind of seen this in mass happening, where people, Stanley Cups, where people will come out and all these beautiful young women they're going to Pilates, they're going to yoga, they're picking up their kids from school, and in their hand, every twist and turn is a Stanley Cup. And when you see that as a young woman, maybe as a mom who's a stay-at-home with young kids, you're seeing this and you're like, oh, they have that, I want that. Well, you want it because it's cute. You also want it because they have it and you're seeing it everywhere. And that's what marketing and advertising is. It trains the brain to see something. And the more you see it, the more you associate it in a positive way. And the more it becomes familiar, the more you want it. Because that familiarity is what your brain thinks is comfort. And comfort is what you're actually looking for. You're looking for a community. You're not getting that. So you're taking something that kind of maybe resembles it in sort of an abstract way, and which it's very there's degrees of separation here, but there is a correlation, and I find that to be really, really interesting. So I guess my takeaway for this video is pay attention to what you are consuming on the internet. What sort of things are coming down your pipeline, your feed, your algorithm. Your algorithm is just a reflection of you, of the things that you like, you stay the longest to watch, you comment on, you save, and you send to your friends. Okay? So whatever's coming down through your little personalized pipeline, pay attention to it. And pay attention to those videos and how they make you feel. And pay attention to your response. Because, if it's constant, people trying to sell you something, if everything is a product, ask yourself, like, how do you feel about that product? Is it something that you want? And if it is, why do you want it? And then kind of zoom out and be like, are there areas of my life that I am not tending to? Are there parts of my garden that I am not tending to? And then take the time to tend to those things if you can. So that's kind of my message, is I feel like I look around, I feel like I zoom out like I'm an alien, right? And I look out and I look at the world and I zoom in on America and I see this massive problem of people that are anxious, depressed, socially isolated. They're not, people are not spending time with friends or family as much. And how can they when everybody is working a second shift just to make ends meet, right? So it's kind of one of this thing where like the snake is starting to eat its own tail. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas before, we had all of this great economic boom come out of, after, the Great World Wars. There was all this, great consumer like buying power that came after that. And so boomers grew up with a lot. And so they in a way, and they're not going to like this if there's any watching, but in a way they were spoiled and they had a hell of a lot more, especially in terms of buying power, than people of my generation, and especially anyone to come after me. But the thing is, though, is that because of that generation then raising kids and having this this expectation of things will only go up, they watched themselves, be raised by the silent generation, I believe. They watched themselves go from meager and modest homes to big, sprawling, mega mansions and nice big neighborhoods, and they believe in mindsets like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, because for them it was easy. So for them, money for nothing and the chicks for free, as the songs say, right? And so they raise their kids to have that same mentality. But it's harder for that next generation to attain the same thing because times have changed. Jobs are different. Money works differently now. And so kind of taking that and going ahead a decade or so, the only way that younger people are really able to keep up with this this precedence, this American precedence of, better, more, bigger, stronger, everything, you know what I mean? The only way that they can keep up with that, as buying power goes down, as wages become stagnant, and as jobs become fewer and far between, and as college degrees basically become useless, the only way that people can signal to their parents and to the people around them their age that they're making it and that they're okay and that they are somebody is by spending excessively, by putting it on credit card. And psychologically, that's why people do it. They don't do it because everyone's stupid. It's not because everyone's stupid and everyone wants to self-sabotage their own financial goals. They do it because we are primed in this country to live the way that we do. That's the problem. It's a societal one. And so for me to have this mentality of this is enough for me, the free chair and table that I'm sitting at that was given to me by a friend that's worn with paint chip and everything, and the 1,200 square foot single wide that I have behind me, right, and the 17-year-old car sitting in my little driveway here, I had to decide at different points in life that these things were good enough for me. And that is a foreign concept. And people will hear that and they'll be like, well, I don't want to settle. Well, who said you're settling? And here's another thing. What is so wrong with settling? Peace should be the ultimate thing that you try to aspire towards in life. Success should be mental well-being and should be an internal sense of satisfaction, which is peace. And if your lifestyle is not in alignment with that and is not in alignment towards peace and towards, self-actualization, if we're following Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you're not aligning yourself towards that, it doesn't matter how many credit cards, how many loans, how many new cars, how many Chanel bags, how many BBLs you get, it will never feel like enough. You can have a room full of thermoses and lunch kits and it's never going to feel like enough if you are not actually tending to your own proverbial garden and if you are not deciding when enough is enough. It's kind of like junk food. We have a culture that is fed, socially and spiritually is fed on junk food, on fad diets, and on fad trends and phenomenons, to a point where, people rarely take the time to stop scrolling to look inward and be like, am I living life in the way that I want to? Am I living life in a way that honors the things that I value the most in life? Whatever those things might be. If you're religious, are you living in a way that honors those beliefs? And if you're not, it's time to take a hard look at yourself and be like, besides criticizing yourself, maybe look and see, like, is there anything in this broader society that is influencing or impacting me to live in a way that is not in alignment with my highest goals, with the things that I want the most for myself? And that's really the saddest part and the most dangerous thing about this hyper consumerist era that we're living in, is that right there. It separates people from themselves. And when you are separated from yourself in an emotional and spiritual sort of way, it makes it that much harder to be available emotionally for the other people in your life. If you have this excessive, crazy lifestyle that, you finance, and so now you have to work, DoorDash and fast food on top of your 9 to 5 just to make ends meet, you have nothing left. You're pouring into everyone else's garden, but you're not pouring anything into your own, and you're coming up empty. And when you're knee deep in that, what is the solution? Well, many people will just keep digging that hole. The solution for them is to buy more things. I deserve a sweet treat. I deserve a new Stanley Cup. I deserve a thing of, Lululemon leggings or whatever the hell. I deserve this. I deserve. That word, I have a bone to pick with that phrase, I deserve this, or you deserve that. I think inherently everybody is deserving of good things. Everybody deserves shelter. Everyone deserves health care. That's not up for debate. I don't care who you are. Everyone deserves food, water, and, to be okay and to have their basic needs met and taken care of. And I think that government should work to fulfill those things because our governments work for us, and that's not up for discussion. That's just what I believe. And so I stand on business with things like that, and the sass comes out. So if that bothers you, then it is what it is, man. I don't know. But when you constantly chase that excess, it makes me sad for people because there's a lack of true appreciation. You know, you can buy, you know, your child 5 lunch kits and you can make the video. And that's really what it comes down to, isn't it? Right? That's what it's about for a lot of these young women and a lot of these people that make this kind of content, is they buy all this stuff because they know it makes a good video. And you can't make a good video unless you're quickly showing a bunch of different products. You don't want to just show one product. That's kind of boring, right? And so they buy all this stuff for the optics. That's a big part of it. And why do they do that? Because again, that ties them back into this idea of belonging. I have the same, you know, Stanley cup as the girl next to me. I have the same pair of, you know, Lululemons as, you know, this other chick that I really like. You know what I mean? And like, I have this, you know, and the more you have, the more eyeballs, the more potential people are going to be interested in each one of those items, and the more people are staying and watching the content, which kind of fulfills this cycle. And you're like, okay, great, people like this, people like me, so I'm going to keep buying all this stuff and I'm going to keep doing this. And, you know, so every season, you know, fall is coming up, and I've already seen videos of people talking about, you know, I got to go to TJ Maxx to get all the stuff for fall. And it's like, weren't you doing this last year? Like, you don't have anything? Did you throw it all away? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you got to go shopping for all new stuff? And then they drop like hundreds or thousands of dollars sometimes on decor and fancy decorative towels and, you know, lawn ornaments for whatever season, and stuff that's cutesy, stuff that photographs well, that videos well. And, you know, okay, maybe you want to make your content, sure. But we have a problem here where culturally we are more fixated on making content than we are making ourselves content. The words are spelled the exact same. It's almost the same word, content and content. You have to ask yourself, you know, whenever you do anything, you know, if you feel an unsettling feeling in your soul, why is that? You know, am I discontented? And if I am, what do I need? Some people, you know, they don't really ask the question, but they do feel that uncomfortableness. They don't know what to do, so they pull out their phone and they scroll on TikTok. And then they come across this really cute necklace or, you know, bangle, bracelet, whatever that somebody has. And that person is beautiful and thin and is aspiring to wealth. And they also want to aspire to wealth, to success, to this grand American ideal of what we are all supposed to aspire to, because that's how culturally a lot of us were raised, right? And I am speaking with broad strokes, you know, I am speaking generally. Obviously, this isn't going to apply to everybody, but I feel like if this doesn't apply to you, it probably applies to someone that you know. And so, you know, you are fed into this wanting to belong. People talk about not having any friends, not having time for any friends. And it's like, maybe if you did the thing that nobody wants to do, you take the thing, you put it down, you put it away. You go outside, plant your feet into the grass, enjoy the air, watch the cars as they pass by, and allow yourself to sit alone with your thoughts. I call this recalibrating. Recalibrate with yourself. And really just sit with your thoughts and think things through. Think it all through, you know? How do you really feel about all the things that are coming through your algorithm? How do you really feel about what you're seeing on the news, about trends, about whatever? Give yourself time to process all these things. And that's a more general approach, but in regards to shopping and having that impulsive shopping itch, you can also take that same principle and apply it to that too. If you're, if you click on something in someone's storefront and you go to add it to your cart, minimize the screen, put the phone down, go take a walk. Don't go back to that storefront page for at least 2 days, And when you do go back, maybe think about it again. Look at your bank account. Can I really afford this? Without putting it on a credit card, can I really afford this? And do I need this? And do I want this? And if I get this, will it actually make me happier? And will it make this uncomfortableness that I feel, will it make that feeling go away? And if so, will it only be a temporary fix? Or is this something that I really need? And when you start to evaluate those things, when you start to really apply critical thinking, you shift from constantly going after, excess in creating or, finding content. You step away from that and you move towards satisfaction and being content. And that, in my opinion, is what real success is about. These billionaires that have more money than even they know what to do with, do you actually consider that to be success? I'm asking an actual question. Do you really consider the hoarding of resources and of material gains, do you really consider that to be success? Or is that not some sort of maladaptive trait, right? Because real success is something that the rest of the community can acknowledge, can see within you, right? The farmer that grows lots of crops is successful. But the farmer that grows everything, but also owns all the banks and all the shops and all the land that everybody lives on, and is constantly upping the prices on everything and raising the prices on his food, do we consider him successful? Or do we consider him to be hoarding and insecure? Because he's chasing that excess, because he's not content, because he's not feeling satisfied, right? At that point, people like that become parasitic in nature. And sometimes we become parasitic to ourselves if we are chasing after more. It's like our spiritual stomachs become a black hole, and nothing is ever good enough. And so you have to Pac-Man your way through everything, and nothing is ever good enough. And people are mentally unwell, and they're spiraling, and they're not okay. And then you have this new segment of videos, this new genre of videos on social media of people coming out and being like, I'm in $35,000 of credit card debt. I'm in, I have $500,000 of debt, including student loans and whatever. And you're looking at this and you're like, how are average Americans even doing this? And it's because they're spending tomorrow's money and then some. Because these are people that they bought into the lie, into the, the idea that to be somebody and to belong and to count as a person and to have your life count, to have it matter, you have to spend a certain amount of money and achieve a certain aesthetic. And that could not be further from reality. There is a saying I heard, and I think it comes from maybe an Italian proverb, I want to say, and I don't remember the original thing. I just remember this one part where the quote says, I refuse to be hurried to death. And I think that applies to this. I refuse to be hurried to death. I refuse to watch content that it's like, oh my god guys, guess what? I am literally so obsessed with this new phone. Look at this case, it's from Berga. Oh my god, like so obsessed. You guys need to get it today. There's a discount in my storefront, like link below. Like, if you're seeing that kind of stuff and you're seeing a lot of it, take a step back. What is happening? What is going on? Does that sound like contentedness to you? Does being literally obsessed with the latest widget, random thing, right? And it's always random shit that these people are literally obsessed over. Do you actually think those people are okay? And that's not to disrespect them or be catty towards them. It's a sincere question. Do you think those people are okay? Do you think the person that's like, oh my god, guys, I got the new Awala cup or whatever it's called, I don't even know. I got the new thing, I'm literally obsessed with the new thing. It keeps my water cold for like 30 minutes. We're outside in the Texas heat, so it doesn't keep it cold that long. But like, I got the new thing. Buy the new thing. Ooh, you know, people that are literally obsessed over everything. Obsession is a very strong word. That's a very strong word. So to be literally obsessed with something, it's like, Jennifer, are you okay? Like, I don't know anyone named Jennifer, but like girl, sir, whoever. I feel like I mostly see women that do this. But genuinely, are you okay? Take a step back, you know? Take a step back. Learn to romanticize the fuck out of what you already have, okay? I might not love every single thing about living in a single wide, but it sure makes me feel like I'm living in some kind of like 90s country song or something, all right? It sure fits the vibe of when I want to listen to people like Meryl Haggard or Tammy Wynette or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it fits the vibe, you know? And so I try to romanticize what I have. I try to fall in love with what I have, because that's where I learn to appreciate it, and that appreciation is what lends to satisfaction. And when you feel satisfied, when you feel like you're a squirrel who has gathered enough nuts and you're going to be okay, you don't have to keep chasing that next one like Scrat in Ice Age. You don't have to keep going after it and looking insane and crazy the way that he does. You feel like you've done enough. And when you feel that feeling is what success. It doesn't really matter what's actually in the bank account. When you feel at peace, when you feel satisfied, when your needs are met, and beyond that, if you're able to then take some of what you have and give it to the people that are nearby you and that you care about, you will be successful. When other people find value in what you have and they admire it, because it's generally admirable and not in a sociopathic hoarding all the things kind of way. But you know, if there is something genuinely admirable about how you're living your life, that's how you know you're successful. So, you know, we are living in a time of a lot of economic uncertainty right now. What's his face in the White House, you know, let go of the lady that was in charge of the BLS, right? And because she reported honestly about how this economy is really doing and how it's not doing well. And you know, my heart goes out to everybody that is having to work multiple jobs, that is stressed and just tapped out as far as like, you know, their means. They're not even living paycheck to paycheck. They're just in the hole constantly. That is a scary and stressful way to live. And I don't want that for anyone. So this TED Talk, if you will, this podcast, as my friends call it whenever I rant for a long time, it's not meant to make you feel low about yourself, and it's not meant to put down other people who are living this way. The entire point of a conversation like this is to just, if you are struggling a little bit, but you are avoiding spending beyond your means, this is a message to kind of, you know, show you that, hey man, you're actually living life the right way. Good doesn't always feel good. You know, making the right decision doesn't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes you don't realize the weight of a good decision until months or even years later on down the line, okay? So while, especially if you're young, you know, if people are putting all kinds of pressure on you to buy this and go on this trip and, you know, oh, you can't go to our destination wedding, why not? You know, if you're feeling all this pressure, just know that you will always have your best interest. You will always have your best interest. No one else is paying your bills. No one else is going to bail you out of, you know, bankruptcy. That's on you. So always, in this regard, especially financially, always put yourself first and give yourself that grace. Give yourself that grace. You know, if you're not where you want to be financially, if you don't have the money set aside, if you do have credit card debt, or if you are kind of in the hole, so to speak, don't guilt yourself about it, because that doesn't do any good, right? That's unproductive. But do sit down with yourself, take some time to unplug offline, and really think about how you're living and what can be changed, and maybe think about, are there any people that I'm following online that I could unfollow that are maybe bad influences. Maybe they're subconsciously influencing me to buy certain things, or to have this anxiety about, oh, I need to go get this thing before it's sold out. Like, relinquish yourself from that and find people that align with your true values. Good does not always feel good in the moment, but it does in the long run. So anyway, my name is Kai. This is the Philosophikai channel. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I greatly appreciate it. My life's philosophy is that you should always invest in people. When you invest in people, it's always worth it. So this is me investing in you. And I want you to invest in yourself, because you can never pour from an empty cup. And that's the point of today's message, is to put you first. Always put you first. Don't spend it excessively. Don't spend beyond your means. You do not need to impress anybody except for your future self. And I think there's a bug in my hair. Anyway, thank you for being here. And I hope that you are well. If you're going through a tough time, know that tough times don't last forever. And you are strong, and everything you need to get through it is right within you. Not to be corny, just to be real. All right, I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.